Hello, and welcome everybody to another in the series of What's New in Zimbra. This is where a series of webinars where we look at new features that we've introduced into Zimbra. And today we're going to be looking at Zimbra Connect. My name is Andrew Shingler. We're just going to spend sort of 10-15 minutes going through the presentation and introducing this new feature that we have in Zimbra. There is a Q&A box in the WebEx, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them there. I probably will leave trying to answer those questions till the end of the presentation, and if we can't get around to answering your question on this session itself, we can always get back to you after the presentation itself. So let's make a start and have a look at Zimbra Connect. So this is actually implemented, so it's new in 8.8.15. Zimbra Connect is essentially a fully fledged instant messaging, group messaging platform inside the Zimbra Web Client, including sort of group and corporate messaging, file sharing, screen sharing, and informal video chats capability. So those of you that are familiar with Zimbra will probably be aware that we have we previously introduced a product called Zimbra Talk, and you will see that this is essentially an evolution of Zimbra Talk. And I will go through some of the differences and what's changed and some of the things that you need to be aware of. But fundamentally, it replaces Zimbra Talk, but from a licensing perspective, all your talk licensing that you may already have today and any of the trial licensing that you're using remains unaffected. So the licensing, and you'll see actually the features, if you're familiar with Zimbra Talk, are very similar. And as I say, I'll go through some of the differences between the two and some of the things that you need to be aware of if you're looking at either implementing or running a proof of concept with Zimbra Connect. So what are the basic features that you'll find within Zimbra Connect? So it's message delivery and read awareness. So in those chat sessions, the fact that you can have a chat with a one-to-one messaging conversation with the other users on the platform, or you can have a one-to-many in terms of a group messaging. So obviously it's delivering messages between yourself and the other participants, and you will see that there are read awareness flags within there. There's also, as I say, corporate messaging, which is what we call spaces and channels, and I'll just go through those briefly in terms of what the differences are between a space and a channel itself. There's the ability to do sort of group video calls within those messaging groups, and also channel video calls as well, so within the channels itself. It also gives you the ability to do file sharing, so the ability to just swap and exchange files within those messaging spaces. And also in a video conferencing environment, you can do screen sharing as well, and you have all the usual kind of emojis that you would expect within a chat type service. So in terms of how it's displayed within the Zimbra Web Client, you'll see that there is a sidebar now in terms of seeing your groups and one-to-one buddy lists within the web client itself. So it's all seamlessly integrated within the Zimbra Web Client. So not that different from what Zimbra Talk used to look like. There's a slightly different layout in terms of its look and feel. But the functionality is very, very similar. So it just allows you to very quickly access recent conversations, start up new conversations, start up group conversations directly from within the Zimbra Web Client. So it really is about trying to put those communication tools and those collaboration tools that your users want within direct reach of their Zimbra Web Client, because generally most people working in Zimbra, either working with email or calendaring and so on, that's where they tend to spend a lot of their day, and having these additional tools at their fingertips makes it a lot easier to have that collaborative approach and exchange of ideas and so on. So within the tab, so again, the actual Zimbra Connect is displayed as a separate tab. So across the different applications, mail, calendaring, tasks, etc., you have the quick sidebar and the messaging capability within there. But then within the Connect tab itself, then you can start having creating these spaces and channels within there. So spaces are essentially virtual meeting rooms where all your users can connect, they can exchange messages, they can make video calls, they can do screen sharing and so on. So you can kind of think of a space as a bit like a sort of a conference center. So that's where you define where you're going to, the topic that you're going to allocate to this particular space. So you'd have multiple spaces which revolve around different subjects and different topics that your users will be communicating around, in terms of projects that they're working on. It might be sort of internal communication within the organization and so on. So it's a very flexible way of having those sort of very quick, responsive communication channels opened up to your users. So channels actually exist within a space. So I talked about spaces essentially being like your conference center, whereas channels are effectively your rooms within that conference center. So within those rooms or those channels, you could have different subtopics going on. So your space might define the overall project, for instance, and then your channels can be areas where specific subtopics are discussed within those spaces. So it's really about bringing people together, users together that have common interests or that have specific tasks that they're working on, and they can communicate within those channels. So each single channel is linked to its own space, and it's possible to communicate with any of those participants within the channel at any time. So again, it's that very sort of flexible and easy way of doing quick communication and collaboration between your users within the environment itself. So there is video conferencing, so audio and video streaming based on WebRTC. So the advantage of using WebRTC is the fact that it's all browser-based. It doesn't require any plugins. Most modern browsers today support WebRTC as well. So there's no additional software necessarily required within the browser. The only slight caveat to that is if you're using Chrome and you want to do screen sharing, there is an extension that's required for screen sharing within the Chrome browser itself. But other browsers support it natively, so it isn't a case that you need to roll out specific software to your end users, and it's very easy for them to participate and be part of the video conferencing capabilities within there. Within there, you've got obviously a message communication list within there, so they can have textual conversations going on within the conference itself. Your main screen is obviously occupied by the person who is communicating or speaking at the time, and then you can see the other participants along the bottom of the screen itself. It supports browser push notifications, so once a call is set up or a call is initiated, other users in the channel or the space or whatever, or within the group, would receive a notification through the browser. So a typical kind of ringing noise where they can then accept and join that video call. Once the call is set up, if a user hasn't actually gone into the call but they're part of that channel or space, they will see that there's an ongoing call, and they can quite easily just connect to that call at any time just by selecting the join button, and they can be part of that conversation as well. So again, very, very flexible, very easy, not complex in terms of requiring a lot of understanding to work with the system itself. So very straightforward to work with. So screen sharing. So as I said, if only with Chrome do you need an actual extension within there, but fundamentally, any user can then go and screen share their desktop or an application, pop-up in the window will appear asking the user whether they want to share their entire screen or just a specific window. So again, they have a certain level of control. If they've got multiple windows or multiple displays on their laptop or desktop, they can choose which display that they want to show to the users as well. So it's that kind of real-time video feed of the desktop itself, which is a useful feature. I know in the past some people have asked, particularly around Zimbra Talk, does it allow for takeover of a user's desktop? No, it's not designed to do that. It really is just a display operation. It's not something that you would use necessarily in, say, a technical support type of role where you want to actually take over someone's desktop. So there are specific applications that are there to do that, things like TeamViewer and so on. So this is purely a kind of a display operation within Zimbra Connect. So I talked, there's some differences between Zimbra Talk v2 as it was published and Zimbra Connect. So they are kind of fundamentally two separate products, and you can, and I'll talk about this you can actually coexist the two, not that we recommend it. But there are a few differences that you probably need to be aware of. So in Talk v2, there was support for XMPP. Now with Connect, there is no XMPP support. So that means that you can't use, obviously there are third-party XMPP capable clients out there in the market, so you wouldn't be able to use that with Connect. However, as a part of our roadmap, we are developing mobile clients, so clients for mobile devices and tablets and so on. So that will be coming as a future part of Zimbra Connect. So it doesn't mean that there'll be no ability to use mobile devices, and obviously we'll be able to make it much more feature rich because we'll be developing the applications ourselves. In previous version of Talk, there was no real API set, whereas now we have a dedicated API set. So potentially there's scope for integration and so on. Whereas Talk was a SOAP base, this is WebSockets. Then some other things, how the user interaction is done. So user interaction is done in Connect more around the GAL rather than buddy lists. So in Talk, you had to sort of build up your buddy list, whereas it's now based on the global address list within there. And then there's some other things, in terms of, minimal UI. And that's probably kind of a general theme that you'll see when you look at Zimbra Connect, is that Zimbra Talk did kind of take up a lot of the real estate. The icons were very, very large. It was a bit cluttered in terms of the menu structures and how you work through the process, whereas Zimbra Connect takes a much more kind of lighter approach. It's less kind of in your face, and it's not quite so cluttered in terms of the overall look and feel. So it's really sort of making a much nicer user interface to work with. One of the things at the bottom there, so in terms of the video streaming and the video calls and so on, so now in Connect, the host can actually control the video and audio controls and so on, so they can mute participants, they can stop video feeds affecting other participants and so on. So it adds in some elements of host-based control, which you didn't really have in Zimbra Talk. It's not, in terms of a platform for doing large-scale webinars like this. It's not really designed for that. It is much more of a sort of ad hoc, small group video meeting area. So it doesn't have all the sort of sophisticated controls that you would expect of a large-scale webinar platform. So it's not really designed to sort of meet that. It's more along the lines of sort of ad hoc meetings and getting together in small groups. So how do you get started? Fairly straightforward. So the installation is from a repository, so it is literally just running, in the case of Ubuntu, an apt-get install, and this is all documented on our documentation website. It's a very simple installation. It will install the Zimbra Connect components within there. If you already have Zimbra Talk, it will actually remove Zimbra Talk from there. So it's going through that process of removing the Zimlets and removing the extensions for Zimbra Talk and replacing them with Zimbra Connect. One thing that you do need to be aware of, and this was, I talked about earlier, we don't advise running the two in parallel. If you deployed Zimbra Connect on the platform and then thought, all right, I'll go and deploy Zimbra Talk. If you deploy Zimbra Talk, it doesn't actually remove the Zimbra Connect Zimlet. So you just need to be a little bit careful there if you try and do the reverse, because you could create some conflicts and so on. But a relatively sort of straightforward way to implement and start up with Zimbra Connect. So as I said here, it can coexist on the server, but we don't advise that you do that. But because there are some databases that are shared, but then also content that may have been created in Zimbra Talk does need to be migrated into the correct format for Zimbra Connect. So there is a tool to do the migration process. It's a fairly straightforward tool. So ZX Suite Connect do import channels, and that will migrate all your existing Zimbra Talk data over into Zimbra Connect. So pretty straightforward to get set up and running. So there are a couple of things that you probably want to be aware of, just so that you know that there are certain features that if you've already worked with Zimbra Talk, you will have seen them in there, but they're not currently available in Zimbra Connect. So at the moment, the file exchange capability within chats and groups and channels is not available in Zimbra Connect, but that will be coming in a later patch. It's currently scheduled for patch 2. And the other thing is the instant meeting capability. So instant meeting was the ability to invite external participants to a video call within Zimbra Talk, and that meant that you could have people outside of your organization that didn't have a mailbox or an account on the Zimbra platform. You could join them into you could have them join into video calls within there. So that currently isn't available in Zimbra Connect yet, but as I say, that is coming as well. So that's going to be introduced in patch 1. So that'll be a patch coming probably in the next few weeks or so. So just be aware of that. It is documented in the administration guide. So if those features are either something that you're using today in Zimbra Talk or are going to be important for you for Zimbra Connect, you may want to sort of hang back a bit and just wait until those features come along. So in terms of requirements, pretty straightforward, 8.8.15 and above, that's when it was introduced. And as I say, there is an admin guide that goes through a lot of the features that I've discussed today, and also how you deploy Zimbra Connect as well. So please feel free to go and have a look at that. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can come back to us or come back to our support guides and so on. Any questions you've got around the Connect capabilities. So that's all I have for you today. It's short and sweet, but this is what we're trying to do, is just some very quick webinars around different topics, and we'd like to, hope you'll be able to take a look at the product. It is available through the trial, so I think you'll be able to implement it on your environments and just see how it works for you. So I see there's a question about, is video working now? So video is working. I mean, I've used the video ourselves. There is still a requirement that you may need turn servers implemented. So not without having to get into too much of the technicalities. Turn servers are how you can manage the video stream connections outside of firewalls and so on across different networks and so on. But yes, it is implemented. So I don't see any more questions. Feel free to come back.
Hi, Andrew.
Yeah, sorry.
I see 3 different questions on the chat panel.
Okay, I'm not looking at the chat panel. I'm looking at the Q&A.
Yeah, I've received a few there. So one question is there any desktop client available for Zimbra Connect?
So not desktop. I mean, desktop essentially, is the web client itself. I mean, obviously we're working on mobile clients, so our focus at the moment is really on mobile devices and tablet devices. So at the moment we don't have any, other than the web client itself. There's no dedicated desktop.
Then someone is asking if you could suggest the best suitable third-party chat client if Zimbra Connect desktop client is not available.
Well, there isn't one. I mean, there is no third-party desktop client. So, yeah, that's the short answer.
And the last question I can see is, do you have idea about internet bandwidth utilization of each web meeting session? Sorry.
It's well, I mean, it's peer-to-peer, so it doesn't hairpin back to the server. So it's really about the connectivity. So if I'm communicating with you, Mariama, then it's more about what's our connectivity between me and you, rather than the connectivity back to the server and out. So I don't have figures. I mean, it might be something that we could investigate and publish, but in terms of in terms of specific numbers, I don't have those. But because it's peer-to-peer, it makes it a lot lighter weight.
All right, I don't see.
Okay, so there is one on the Q&A. Only users in the same server can participate in a video conferencing. So in the current, as it's released today, yes, that is correct. So because it doesn't have the external participants capability. So in Talk, we did implement that, or instant meetings. So it will be coming in, I think I said patch 1. So the ability to have external users participate in videos as well. So that will be coming. Thank you for your time, everybody. And as I say, we like to try and host these videos on a regular basis. So look out for when we'll be doing another one.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.